Jacqui Cooper, welcome back to the LaTrobe Financial Professional Series. You're a wonderful friend of the business. It's great to have you back again.
I love coming here. Honestly, a friend of the business, I think it's more than that. I feel like family.
You're definitely family. Let me ask you, Jacqui, we always start with this because aerial skiing, it's the most intimidating, it's the most frightening sport out there. How did a young girl from Melbourne, as you were at the time, get involved in aerial skiing?
Well, I was always a kid that was fascinated with acrobatics. Ever since the time I could walk, I didn't want to walk anymore. I wanted a cartwheel or forward roll, backward roll. I wanted a trampoline, and my parents were like, there's no way you're going to get a trampoline. I wanted to go to gymnastics, and they said no. For those that don't know me, I'm actually a triplet. So my parents were fairly outnumbered when the triplets came along because they already had a toddler. So there was 4 kids under 2 when I was born. And so they figured they were going to be too busy, but there was enough kids to play together and have fun. But still, that didn't mean that we could get a trampoline. So I used their bed to jump up and down on the couch. I used anything I could to actually get airborne. And when I was old enough, I went to school and made friends with kids that had trampolines, or I went to caravan parks and jumped on the caravan park trampoline or the motel one. Anywhere where I could somersault, I would actually find it and do it. And then finally we moved to a suburb that had a recreation centre that had 2 Olympic-sized trampolines, which is, at the time, it was unusual because Olympic-sized trampolines, they're hard to see even these days. And so to invest in a community centre that had 2, I was like, oh, this is heaven for me. So I went every single day with my sisters and made them wait for me while I sort of scratched that itch and got busy upside down for 15 minutes. Anyway, I was at the trampoline one day when I was 16 years old and a guy saw me. It was almost like that moment where a model happens to be spotted at the airport, but I was just a crazy kid on a trampoline. He happened to be running a crazy sport called aerial skiing at Mount Buller. He saw me and he thought, aha, let's go over and meet her. And he said he liked the way I spoke. He said I spoke like a hard-working, passionate risk taker. And he thought that's what we need in the sport. And he gave me a bit of a roadmap and a plan to become a world champion. And that's how I got started. But I honestly could not believe that I was found and that a man saw something in me that I didn't even know that I had. And it was all just like serendipitous, really.
So do you regard yourself first and foremost as Australia's greatest ever winter Olympian or a frustrated trampolinist?
A frustrated trampolinist.
Right, thought you might say that. Tell me about your first Winter Olympics. So Lillehammer, 1994, this young girl from Melbourne started on trampolines, suddenly you're aerial skiing, suddenly you're there with the greatest in the world. That must have been an extraordinary moment.
It was an extraordinary moment, but I was almost like catapulted into that too quickly. In Lillehammer in 1994, that was the first time aerial skiing had been on an Olympic program. So it was very new. It was almost seen as a little bit like circus performers or these cowboys are going to roll into town. And a lot of the alpine skiers and a lot of those blue ribbon events didn't really like aerial skiing at the Olympics. So I didn't really know too much about the Olympics. It was brand new. There hadn't been Olympic hype moving in. Even when you think about it, back in 1994, Australians weren't used to thinking about Aussies going to a Winter Olympic Games. And even though I was an athlete, I didn't think about it too much myself. In fact, I was only given the call up to become an Olympian for those Olympic Games in 1994 the week beforehand. I didn't even have a uniform. Someone who didn't qualify had their name on the uniform and they scratched that person's name off and renamed it with my name. I was like, fine, that'll do, cool, I'm just happy to be here. Honestly, at the Olympic Games, when you first arrive, I didn't even think about the event that I was meant to be in. I was so awestruck. You arrive at the Olympic Village and there's the Jamaican bobsled team who'd been made famous at the Calgary Olympics just 8 years earlier. And it was like being, at like a Taylor Swift concert. Everyone's there wanting to get the pins and get signatures. We're like, we have to remember we're here to actually compete. So it was quite overwhelming for me, 21 years old, didn't understand the enormity of the Olympic Games or my place being there at the first Olympics for aerial skiing. I was a kid just to be sort of on this sort of wave of excitement. So it was really great. To say that I was at the very first aerial skiing Olympic Games, that's pretty amazing.
It sounds like an extraordinary achievement. Fast forward then to 2002. So you're easily the best aerial skier in the world. You're the red hot favourite going into Salt Lake City. Then just a week before you have a catastrophic injury to your knee. That must have been a devastating blow for you.
That would, to blow your knee out at the Olympic Games, it's really hard because all of the hard work's done, all of the preparation's done. You're in a mindset and a focus, you're sort of in that flow state where you're in the go zone. And the opening ceremony had already taken place. So the Olympic Games are started, you're there and you're ready to go. And my big accident actually happened in the training right before the competition. So to sort of be there, ready to go and be a 3-time world #1 and break your leg, knowing that the Olympic Games are still going to take place and you're not going to be a part of it, that was a hard pill to swallow. And while I lay there on the landing hill in Salt Lake City, I had to readjust what those next moments, hours, days and weeks would look like for me, because I hadn't envisioned that next following days, weeks and months would have me being an Australian Olympic champion. So straight away I had to just wipe the slate clean and think, you know, what am I doing now? What is this all about for me? So there was a lot for me to process, and to wake up from surgery. I had knee surgery not long after that accident back in Australia, and I woke up from surgery in the recovery area, surgical recovery, and I'm watching the events medal ceremony where my teammate won a gold medal that everyone thought I was going to win, while I was lying there freshly just an hour out of surgery, knowing that the next 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years was going to be my new path. That was pretty hard. So there was a lot of tears, but there was also a mindset shift that was made in that moment.
So there was a steely resolve that came out of that, and as it turns out, you ended up competing in the next 2 Olympics in 2006 and then in 2010, and ultimately became the first Australian woman to compete in 5 Olympics. You must be, given the disaster of Salt Lake City and how you felt in that moment, you must be incredibly proud of the way you bounced back.
Yeah, well, the Salt Lake City was a bit of a T-intersection for me. So when I lay there, incredibly injured, the same gentleman that found me on the trampoline when I was 16, he came to me and he sort of offered me 2 scenarios. He said, you're a 3-time world champion, you've just injured yourself at the Olympic Games, everyone feels incredibly sorry about the timing, what's happened. No one's going to blame you if you retire right now. No one will. You'll leave the sport being a champion, 3-time champion, but I don't think we've seen the best yet, Jacqui. You'll leave a champion, but I don't think you'll leave the greatest. I think that if you still stay in the sport, but spend the next 2 to 4 years reinventing yourself, come back different, then you can leave the sport the greatest. And so he said it's going to need hard work, it's going to need you to sort of unlearn, I guess, all of your skills and start again. He said you're going to have to remove the ego, get rid of that, pretend you don't know who you were before today, start fresh, be with 16-year-olds, lose all your funding. So it was really just stripping me of everything that I knew, everything that I'd won and done, and saying, right, now we're going to go again. It's like teaching the old dog new tricks. And what I really liked about that, I felt incredibly guilty for blowing my knee out at the Olympic Games. You know, I'd made some mistakes and I own all of them. I shouldn't have trained that day. There was a lot of things that I did wrong, and I don't think I could have forgiven myself had I not had another go. And so this was about me trying to redo or undo or have a do-over of what happened in Salt Lake City, but it meant that I got to start again. And I enjoyed that process. How many times do we actually get to do in life where we're going to say, you know what, I'm going to take the next 4 years, I'm going to forget everything I've ever done, and I'm going to reprogram myself technically, emotionally, physically, skillfully, and rebuild that toolbox so you can be better. It just doesn't happen. So I was given that opportunity without pressure to say, you've got as long as you like, the next 2 to 4 years to start again. And honestly, it was refreshing. It was so wonderful. The pressure was taken off me. I got to enjoy that process. No one was looking at Jacqui Cooper anymore. They thought, oh, she's gone. There's no way she's going to be able to come back into sport in 4 years from now and be the best. So I got to just enjoy aerial skiing. I got to take my time and see what else I could do, see if I could change. And that honestly was a bit of I would say it was a gift. It was almost like the gold medal I didn't get. It was so rewarding. It was something I wouldn't want to change. And in Salt Lake City, had I won, I would have retired. But blowing my knee out in that moment, it gave me the longevity to do something that no one else had ever done as well. So that's amazing. Beautifully said, beautifully said.
So, Jacqui, trust is a cornerstone of success for everyone in sport, in business, in every endeavour in life. Trust in your customers, trust in your partners, trust in your team. It's just critical. And when I think about your career, starting off as a trampolinist, moving into aerial skiing, recovering from catastrophic injuries, allowing your coach to rebuild you from bare metal, it's tough. It requires an awful lot of trust. Do you reflect a lot on trust in your professional career?
Oh, 100%. I think about trust and trusting that meeting with Jeff when I was 16. And for me, trust is confidence. I didn't have confidence as a 16-year-old. I barely knew who I was. And I looked at Jeff and I trusted him. I trusted his process. I trusted the plan that he had. And because I trusted that, it gave me confidence in myself as well. It's also in a team situation or at the Olympic Games or in rebuilding yourself. If you don't have the confidence in the people that you work with or you're working for, there won't be any trust. So they go together absolutely perfectly. And for myself, I always had the confidence in the people that I worked with because I trusted them. Why did I trust them? Because I had confidence. And for me, it was about everything that they did to show me that I could trust their skill level, the program that they had me on, that I was in the right path, that I would get to the Olympic Games, that my knee would be, that it would recover. And I think it's about having confidence. And for me, I didn't have that as a 16-year-old, no resilience, no toolbox, no nothing. So I had to place my trust in someone. But it was there because I had confidence. They showed me their plan for me. They had a process that I would undertake, and everything that they said that I would do actually happened. And that in itself, those small little bits that you can see falling into place as a young athlete, as a mature athlete, as an outgoing champion, those little bits, that trust builds over and over and over. It's quickly lost too, by the way, as you know. But for me, I always trusted people that gave me confidence in the skill that they had. And also for myself, I didn't always trust myself. Because I didn't have the skill level, I didn't have the confidence early on that I could actually do it. So that also took time.
So what's the process that you went through internally? Because there must have been a process. At some point, you developed the confidence, as you've said, the self-assurance to take on the frankly crazy, dangerous, intimidating maneuvers that you're going to be doing in the air, meters and meters above the ground, with hundreds and thousands and sometimes millions of eyes upon you. At some point, you have had to find that within yourself. How have you developed that level of self-assurance?
So at 16, you start off as zero. And I would say, just like anything, it's one foot in front of the other, and it's also pennies in the bank. So in the very beginning, I didn't have that ability. I didn't, but as I moved through my career, I was able to gain I'd say that I gained the confidence in myself based on my performances. Anytime I wavered, anytime I wobbled, I would go back to the 10 pieces of paper Jeff wrote for me. You know, he gave me a wonderful plan to look at. It was all there in black and white. So anytime I wobbled and when I didn't have the confidence or in the trust in myself, I went back to my plan, and the plan would say, well, you're not meant to be great in year 2, you're going to be great in year 10. So stay in the now, stay focused on year 2, maybe even year 3, but don't worry about year 10, because right now you need to gain skills for an athlete that is in year 2 of a 10-year path. So try not to get too ahead of yourself and just stay in that moment, and then you can really control the way you're feeling and the way that you I guess compete, the way you show up and how you handle yourself is based on what you're meant to do right now. Anytime you start getting too far out there, it's going to be too much for anyone, and I think we can do that at work. It's like you get in the way of yourself, step out of your own way, concentrate on what you're doing, and everything is more digestible, it's easier, you have more confidence, and then you can execute the skill.
So it's interesting, you raise work and you've had a very successful career post aerial skiing, so you've built a second career too. What would you say about that career development, and in particular lessons that staff and staff here at LaTrobe Financial and people generally can take into their daily routines to build those same attributes?
So when you're an aerial skier or an athlete and you do it for 20 years, that's the only person you know. So for 20 years I put on a one-piece ski suit and a helmet, and honestly, when I took my very last jumps in Vancouver at 2010 and went back to the change room and I was taking off my ski suit, I knew that I was taking off almost like an armour or a superhero suit and putting that away for the very last time. I felt quite vulnerable. I'm like, who is jumping Jack without the jumping? Who is that person without the ski suit? So I had some pretty sort of honest conversations with myself, and I wasn't too sure who I would be or what I would be like if I didn't have the aerial skiing side of Jacqui Cooper. But what I realised was the most important part of my career wasn't the trophies, wasn't the memories, wasn't the landed jumps. It was the toolbox, the invisible toolbox that was built from the 20 years of sport. And I don't need the ski suit to be able to carry that ski suit, I don't need the ski suit to be able to carry that toolbox beyond Vancouver and into my life now. It's packed with resilience, it's packed with hard work and working with others, your ability to process feedback, how you accept challenges, how swiftly you move through good times, bad times. Are you adaptive? Do you have a rock brain? All of these things, that's in my toolbox.
A rock brain.
Rock brain. People stubborn, you're stuck, you're not flexible, you're not adaptive. You're resistant to change, rock brain.
Yes. Yeah.
Rock brain's not okay, So the toolbox was really important for me. So what I would say to people is that look at your toolbox. Take out skills that aren't needed there anymore. Put in fresh ones. Make sure that toolbox doesn't get left behind. Bring it with you. Keep it relevant so that you can access it and use it professionally and personally. That is your biggest asset. It's all those experiences. Take them. They're worth something. They're usable skills, and you can use them in sport and in business.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so everything in your story speaks to excellence. The perfection of a jump, the hard work, the commitment to excellence, that's just critical to reach the pinnacle of a sport like aerial skiing. How did you maintain that commitment to excellence through really the daily grind of a long career, lots of setbacks, lots of injuries? How do you keep that commitment to excellence?
Excellence for me is about being curious. Being curious to see how much you can do. So for me, I never ever looked at anybody else and I guess I didn't judge myself against anybody but myself. And so I'm Jacqui Cooper. How much can Jacqui Cooper do? And for me, that is excellence. So I was continually, and I still don't think I found how much I could do in aerial skiing. Like if I could keep jumping, I still would have now, and I'd still be working on stuff today. And so it's that never-ending search of seeing how much you can actually do and seeing where that potential is. And I think it's limitless. And it's about being curious to want to see if you can do this better. Can I win more? Can I strive for more? Can I inspire more? Excellence for me is about continually seeing how much you can do, how much self-improvement is there, where your potential's at, and it's about not stopping at just the first victory, the second victory. It's about always wanting more, lifting that bar, and the executing at a higher level.
Let's switch to accountability. So accountability is something that we at LaTrobe Financial take incredibly serious, Jacqui. And if I think about the way you built your career, if I think about the setbacks that you experienced, if I think, there were times when you could have given up, you could have put it in the too hard basket, the it's too painful basket. Certainly that would have come up once or twice, I'm sure, in your mind. How do you hold yourself accountable and say, no, this is what I want to achieve? This is what I want to achieve for myself and for my team. How do you hold yourself accountable in those really difficult moments?
So there's a lot of factors when you're an athlete, and first of all, it's self-accountability. That's the biggest one. At the end of the day, the conversations that you have with yourself, they're going to be more than you speak to anybody. So I never ever wanted to let myself off the hook. I had to have conversations with myself to say, am I happy tonight going to bed knowing that I did more yesterday than I did yesterday? Am I going to put myself in a better position to win tomorrow? They're conversations that you have to have with yourself. I couldn't rest. So the accountability for myself is the first thing, but there are other ones to your team. So when you're on a team, it isn't just about you, it's about everybody else about you. It's about not only your results, it's about how you represent your team, how you represent yourself, how you represent your country, and how all of those things might affect funding levels. It might affect the next person being able to come onto the team and having a place on the World Cup. So you have to realise that this isn't just about you. As athletes, we can get quite selfish, but it isn't just about you, it's about more than you. It's about your team, it's about your sport, it's about your country, who you represent. I was sponsored by LaTrobe Financial, so there's that extension as well. I have to make sure that I'm representing myself, but I'm also representing the brand of LaTrobe and anybody else that I was sponsored by. There's a lot to think about there. So you have to make sure that you are showing up every single day and dotting your I's, crossing your T's. And the thing that I would say that underpins all of that is respect. It's respect. You respect yourself, you respect your teammates. You don't have to always like your teammates, but you must respect them. You might not like the rules, or you might not like the competition format, but there must be a level of respect there. That's part of the Olympic ideals and the Olympic values. It is respect, respecting sport, respecting culture. And I think respect goes a long way. And when there's respect, there's accountability. And you keep yourself accountable for absolutely everything you do. And you'll compete at the highest level, you'll act at the highest level. And that's when you really are a person that you can be proud of. They're the conversations that you have with yourself at night. Are you proud of what you did today? Can you do more tomorrow? And I was like that every single day. And I made mistakes, and honestly, I was my harshest critic. Harshest. Didn't let myself off the hook at all.
One thing that's always stood out for me, and it came through in your remarks there, Jacqui, but one thing that has always stood out for me is the way you position what could be a very individual sport in the context of your team, in the context of your family and friends and a broader community. How have you found using your platform, I guess, as an Olympian to make a difference in the lives of others?
Yeah, I love talking about this because as an athlete from Australia, we're very spoiled. Anyone that grows up in Australia that wants to get into sport, it is a great place to be. When you think about other countries, you'd want to be an Australian, wanting to do sport and wanting to be the very best in sport. Australians love sport. So automatically there's interest, there's eyes on sport, it's entertainment. There's a lot of money put into sport. There's a lot of funding from government put into sport. So for me as an athlete, I had not only Australians wanting me to do well, local government, sponsors, neighbours, everyone wants you to do well. Why? Because it makes them feel good too. They're a part of that journey. And so I feel like when I had finished my career and I'd won 5 world titles and had 20 years somersaulting on snow, going to the best ski resorts in the world, I feel like that now, what a great place for me to be able to pay a thank you by giving back to the community. So many people gave so much of themselves to me so that I could be the very best in the world. Whether it was a thank you card, whether it was funding, whether it was a guy waxing my skis for me, or even a taxi guy saying, don't worry about the fare, the taxi fare, we know that athletes do it tough. Now it's my time to give back. I spent 3 days last week volunteering, whether it's a sausage sizzle at Bunnings for a track and field event, club, or at a pet shelter for the Australian Animal Protection Society. 2 days in an animal shelter, we ended up bringing a cat home. You know, I just love giving back now. I love the feeling, because I'm telling you now, giving makes you feel better than receiving. And I know LaTrobe Financial know that. We'd love to be able to give into the community because it makes us feel better and it makes everybody else around us feel good about what we're doing too. So as an athlete now, I love talking to kids. I love giving them my advice. I speak to young athletes. I mentor them. So there's that whole give back now. In fact, I've got on the computer a lot and I've documented 20 years of my career in an Excel spreadsheet and given it to the Institute of Sport, hoping that anything that I went through in my career, they can use that so they can give the next athletes maybe an even better start to their career. Maybe they can win more than 5 world titles. So it is about the give back, and the give back makes you feel good.
So what would you say to LaTrobe Financial team members who are looking at their own lives and who are thinking, how can I give back? Where do I plug in? Where's my contribution? What would you say?
I would say when you're giving, make sure that you're doing it where you have passion. So my passion is people, it's animals, and it's kids. So I look at those different areas and I do plug into the local community groups, different sporting clubs that need a bit of assistance, that need a hand, that might need some fundraising, and go there. You've got to be able to, if you want to volunteer, it has to be a passion of yours, you know, and then it's heartfelt, it's real, and that's when sort of the magic happens, because you feel good about being there, they feel good about you being there, then you want to go back. It doesn't feel like you're working, you're feeling like you're doing great, you know, and it makes you feel great too. Can I tell you about a study?
Go.
So there was a study out of California and it was about giving. And it was run by a professor, and he's a professor of happiness. And so he wanted to know about where happiness comes from. So in the study, $1,000 was given to 100 people. $1,000. Go take the $1,000 and spend the money. So they did brain scans on these people before they got the money, and blood tests, all the different levels, hormone levels. And then when they were given the money and then they went and spent, obviously there was a sort of a rise in their endorphins and how they felt. And so they tested their brain activity. The day after they spent all the money, they noticed that all of those levels had dropped down again. And they thought, wow, that only lasted, you know, that sort of that feeling when you shop and it goes back down again. Then a month later, they gave them money again. So we're going to give you another $1,000, but this time you have to spend the money on someone else. It can be volunteer to a voluntary program, it can be community, it can be your partner. So they tested them again, and then the day after they tested them, and it had dropped a little bit, but not much. So what it shows is when you give to somebody else, you feel good for longer than when it is that you take for yourself.
Investment. Yeah.
It is absolutely a long-term investment. I tell my kids that all the time. I said that is a real study. And so when you start doing things for other people, you're going to feel better about yourself for longer. And the effect that you've had on somebody else could be life-changing.
Yes, yeah, fabulous. So last question, Jacqui. What are the attributes of really, really successful teams? So much of your career has been about the team around you, your support team, your family, your friends. What is it that makes a team successful?
The most important thing for a team to be successful is that they all have to have the same mindset. So you have to have everyone that's like-minded. You can't have someone that thinks differently. It's always going to be a problem. It's going to create issues, and it's not cohesive. You've got to be able to all have an equal buy-in, and you're all there for the same reason. You're all trying to move forward. It is much easier to move forward as one than one that's trying to pull you back. And that's the most important thing, is making sure that everyone is on the same page, everyone's like-minded, everyone's there for the same reason, and then there's that real energy, there's that real gel, and everyone comes together, and it becomes easier. So that is the main thing, is that everyone needs to have the same attitude, and it really is the word, it's being a part of the right culture.
Common goals, common mindset, common culture, and alignment. Everyone pulling in the same direction.
Yes, and when there's alignment's a perfect one, isn't it? When you're not aligned, then you're derailed. You're actually not aligned. So everyone has to be aligned, and that's the thing. That's when you know you've got something going. Those attributes are hard work, respect, commitment, passion, drive, energy, fair play, all of those things that you think about in athletes, the Olympic Games, they're also in a family. Same with a family unit. You got one person that's not in alignment, there's going to be friction within the family. It brings that in that real togetherness, and that comes from all of those attributes.
Jacqui Cooper, thank you for joining us for the LaTrobe Financial Professional Series.
I've loved it. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Jacqui.